Welcome back. Now let's take a look at how the markets have fared, particularly starting out in Asia. It seems to have been a green day across the board as well. Last night we saw the Nasdaq as well move to some record high trading. So if it reaches a record high, that means it currently sits at levels pre-coronavirus. So it's the first of the three main indices on Wall Street to now officially go back to levels that we saw before the coronavirus even impacted markets and economies as well. So a good day overall for the Nasdaq. Even the Dow Jones Industrial enjoyed some good trading. Overall then, out in Asia as well, we saw some positive trading, a big 1% gain for the Hang Seng out in Hong Kong as well. They're 1.13% in fact, with the Shanghai Composite as well in China doing fairly well. Unfortunately though, Europe not sharing the same sentiments and unfortunately going down quite a bit, and drastically so, with almost 2% lost for each of the European markets as well. Then the FTSE 100 out in London 1.6% down, nearly 2% down for the DAX as well in Germany, 1.8% down as well then for the CAC 40 out in France. It's a similar position for South Africa's index as well. Then one would have thought that the Asian carry trade would have been there, but unfortunately the World Bank's report regarding South Africa's growth picture, the growth picture of the globe really clearly coming into the picture, even if it is ever so slightly, nearly 0.8% down for the JSE All Share today. A lot of that has been led by the resource counters, which are down more than 1%. Then the financials, they're doing a bit as well, going down 0.75%. The gold index though managing to go up 2.7%, perhaps some safe haven trading still following through on that front. Onto the commodities picture, down it goes, the Brent crude price, and this is despite all of the agreements with regards to the production cuts that have been put together for at least another month. Now it seems that even though demand is set to go back, fears are that too much supply may continue to seep into the market then, as the global economic growth picture isn't necessarily looking too rosy. Advanced economies expected to go down 7.1% according to the World Bank, while emerging markets are set to go down 2.5% on that front there. Platinum going down as well, unfortunately, while, as I said, that safe haven trading coming back to gold as it now sits just above that $1,700 a fine ounce mark. Let's head on over then to the local currency. Well, having strengthened, of course, of late to around 16 Rand 64, its best mark since around March the 16th, as where the Rand sat a little bit earlier on today. It is a little bit weaker, but still in some positive territory at 16.74 against the US dollar. We certainly are hoping for an improvement on that front. And of course, the global growth figures may indeed have impacted that there. It's 18.87 though for a euro, with the pound sterling still stubbornly above that 21 Rand market, 21.18. Let's unpack this market movement now. Martin Harris from IG South Africa joins us via Skype. Martin, thank you so much for the time. It's an interesting one when one takes a look at that oil price, which is now sitting just above that $40 a barrel mark. There was thoughts that perhaps it would climb a whole lot higher, or is this perhaps the new normal, $40 odd?
Look, I think we had oil sinking after Saudi Arabia said that it wouldn't continue its additional cuts, deeper output cuts into July. So they said after June they're not going to be cutting, and so we got a sort of a softness in the oil price. I think what we are seeing though is we've got still extended quantities and inventories of oil available in the United States and across the Western world, as well as in Saudi Arabia and Russia. And so you've got high inventory levels with what has been high output. And although they're cutting back the amount of output, there's still a glut of inventory in oil across the globe.
Yeah, that glut then, what does that mean for Sasol? I mean, we've seen the spike in that share price going well above 100 Rand. Even yesterday was a good day for Sasol too. What are the prospects of the company? Are we still waiting for Lake Charles and that scenario, or are we just hoping that the higher the oil price, the better Sasol's share price?
Look, it's definitely two parts. So one is that Sasol really are desperate to keep a high oil price. It's necessary for their earnings. If they get a price that is sub $24 or sub $22 for Brent, it's almost certain that Sasol would have to go back into the capital markets and raise more equity from the shareholders, which would result in a rights issue, and we'd see the Sasol share price halving. The other thing, going back to Lake Charles, is based on Henry Hub natural gas. So what's important about Henry Hub? It's a natural gas pipeline, and it's located in Louisiana. And natural gas is important for the Lake Charles ethane cracker. And the low prices that we're seeing in natural gas and in ethane are instrumental in having a low operating cost of the Lake Charles project. And so the natural gas prices and the ethane prices have actually been kept quite low. They've been quite volatile, and so it's been really positive for the operating costs of the Lake Charles project. And so overall, positive for Sasol.
So, long-term bet on Sasol, or is that still what seems to be a short-term play for many investors of late?
It's been a fantastic short-term play. I think a lot of people climbed in Sasol, sub 30 Rand. It was just too tempting to avoid. So, massive gamble though. From 22 Rand all the way up to sort of in the 80s, back down to 40, back up to 80, down to 40. And now today we're about 175 Rand a share in Sasol. So I think most of that optimism of the upside is now priced in. I've seen a few results coming out, a few analyst reports, and we're sort of seeing Sasol, the max sort of target price being given is about 190 Rand a share. So according to that, there'd still be a bit of juice left in that price. But I think that massive upside swing has now been baked into the price, and you've now got risk to the downside. Now the optimism is priced into Sasol. If things go wrong from here, that's where you could see the Sasol price falling again, and then you'll again get the buyers probably re-emerging if it were to fall.
Yeah, we'll get very interesting on that one, and we'll continue to have a look at it and watch exactly where it goes. Still speaking equity prices, though, there's juice, as you made note of, in the whole market by the seams of it. Outside of today, particularly in Europe and here locally, though, we have had the market climb quite prodigiously. 54,000 points is where the JSE currently sits. At some point, we even struggled to make up 49,000 points. The Asian market did very well. The Nasdaq climbing to a new record high as well, then pre-coronavirus levels. Is there something to be said about the market perhaps jumping the gun and believing that the coronavirus pandemic may indeed be over?
So there's definitely a lot of optimism put into the price. The idea is that if they can, get on top of coronavirus, the market goes back to where it was. Plus, you've got all of the stimulus in the market. So you've got across the globe, United States, Asia, Europe, you've got multiple central banks putting liquidity, buying back assets, buying bonds of their markets. So you've got the global markets really pushing upwards due to all of the stimulus. That stimulus has to go somewhere. And what it's done is it's resulted in, even in South Africa, we've got a lot of net foreign inflows. So we've got foreigners buying back broad ETF, so just broad-based South African equities. So you get these general moves upward. And as you had said, the S&P 500 has retraced all of its losses seen in March. So we're back at square one. It's I never thought I would see it so soon, but it was exactly what the Federal Reserve had set out to do, was to provide an economic recovery for the United States, and that's exactly what we're seeing in their stock markets.
Yeah, back to the bull, if you want to call it that as well. Then we also saw, unfortunately, though, the U.S. economy go into negative territory in the first quarter of the year. According to the National Bureau for Statistics, they're going down 4.8% in the first quarter. So the first fall, I suppose, then in just over 10 years for the U.S. economy. And yet they expect that uptick to perhaps be quite prodigious for the remainder of the year and headed into 2021, although the second quarter could see losses of up to 20%. So it'll get very interesting there. Let's come back locally, though, very quickly, Martin, as well, and talk about some more equity news. Life Healthcare getting hacked. Is that something we should be worried about as perhaps not just investors, but even consumers, I suppose, too?
Yeah, look, that was an interesting one to see. So Life Healthcare had said that their South African operations were the victim of a cybercrime. They said that they've acted immediately. They were not fully aware of what data was breached. They said that they've taken their entire system offline to contain the attack. And so without understanding what sensitive data was compromised, the market isn't too sure. Life Healthcare is up 2.5% today. And so we're yet to determine what this could result in and, maybe what the hackers were looking for.
Yeah, it will certainly get interesting, and hopefully a keen eye will be placed on this one. Martin, appreciate the time though. Good to chat to you again. Martin Harris is from IG South Africa, helping us unpack that market movement, the latest on the equity front. Then, as I said, the market not necessarily going up today in South Africa, going down unfortunately, but still firmly above that 54,000 point mark. We've continued to see positivity, markets getting back to some sense of normality as most global economies begin to open up. What happens with that oil price? Well, we'll see. Demand is beginning to pick up though, but does that mean that the oil price will go higher? For now though, it's more than 1% down. Let's check in on all of that as well again tomorrow. But I'll be back with more news right after the short break. Do stay tuned. This is On Point.